guys, and welcome back to the 2023-24 SDPN NHL season previews. Next up, we have the Buffalo Sabres, an extremely exciting young core hoping to take that next step into the NHL playoffs. But in this stacked Atlantic division, can they actually make it happen? But we're going to be answering that question and a lot of others as well as we look through the subtractions, the additions they made this offseason to see what's next. But first, let's shout out our folks over at Sports Interaction. Get into the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction. Baseball and a ton of other sports are going strong right now. You don't want to miss out. You can bet before the game, live and in play with all your favorite teams. So go to sportsinteractions.com/SDPN or download the app to get started. 19 plus and please play responsibly. Now this last season, we saw the Sabres really take that big next step, placing 5th in the Atlantic Division with a 42-33-7 record, getting 91 points on the year and just being 1 point shy of a playoff spot. And considering what the Sabres fans have had to deal with for the last decade, they will take that. As we talked about, the Atlantic Division is stacked and they'll be in that range of potentially Florida, Tampa, Boston, Ottawa, Detroit. So many teams kind of in that murky middle in the Atlantic that are going to be fighting for these spots. But when we look at their offseason additions, they need to go after defense and goaltending, in my opinion. And they really only checked one of those boxes, potentially. Now, the big addition was Connor Clifton, getting him signed to a $3.3 million deal for the next 3 seasons. He's been an interesting spot, more as a depth defenseman in Boston, and this last year, 23 points in 78 games. To me, I think I see him more as an offensive D, and doesn't really solve too many of their issues. They also went out and got Eric Johnson, formerly of the Colorado Avalanche, who brings some solid depth, maybe on a third pairing role, could be decent defensively, could be in a good mature role, but I also wouldn't expect too much since this last year was a little bit of a decline for him. So the Sabres needed to add something on defense. They did. We'll have to wait and see if it'll actually fix their issues, though. Now, the good news for the Sabres is that they really didn't lose too much this offseason. Craig Anderson just completely retired from the game of hockey altogether, which was probably about time. They also lost Vinny Hinostroza on their forward group, who signs with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but nothing that's really going to keep them up at night. Now, there's 3 players to watch, I think, for this Sabres team coming up this next year, and a 4th, which we'll get into at the biggest question mark. But the first one I want to mention here is Casey Mittelstadt, who really had a solid breakout year this last season, getting 59 points in 82 games, a monstrous season out of him, and 31 points out of his last 32 games as well. If he's able to keep that, he might actually start living up to the draft hype he once had, and that would be huge for Buffalo. For the second player to watch, I got Owen Power, who took that big step into the NHL this last season of having a great rookie year. 35 points in 79 games, and even though the production wasn't terribly elite, he was driving play at an incredible rate. And to me, Owen Power, that sophomore slump, getting out of that will be huge for him. If he's able to have a solid season, honestly, if he plays the same as he did before, you could honestly see an increase of like 15 points. He got extremely unlucky, especially beginning the season. I don't see that happening this next year. And then for my third player to watch, a player we've already talked about in Connor Clifton, likely being on that second pair perhaps with Owen Power, he will be relied upon a lot. And I don't know if he has defensive chops to be able to handle that. We'll have to wait and see, but he will be relied upon, not just with the cap hit, but the responsibility too. Now let's go into the biggest question mark with this Buffalo Sabres team, and to me, it is far and away, will Devon Levi be able to carry their goaltending? Because as of right now, it's Levi, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, maybe Eric Comrie. If Devon Levi doesn't have the rookie season like he probably should, that goaltending is once again going to be a problem. I don't doubt that Levi will be a superstar in this league. He is one of the best goaltending prospects out there, but I also feel like his backup options just aren't good and aren't reliable. Eric Comrie hasn't played more than 19 games in any season in the NHL, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has shown not to be even that great, even in a backup role. To me, Levi could be relied upon a little bit too much, and we could see some points where that starts to go against him. But if Levi is up there in the Calder race, Buffalo is going to be a playoff team, no doubt. But let's grade the forwards, defense, and goaltending, and starting out with the Buffalo Sabres and their forward group. I mean, this is insane. You see the quality of they have in the top 6. Even though Jack Quinn being out for the first couple months is brutal for them, they could have some players coming up and stepping into big roles. I'm going to give the forward group an A. Once Jack Quinn is back, there is a case made that it could be an A+. But then we go into the defense, and this is a lot weaker than the forward group for sure. Even though you got some standouts like Dahlian and Power, and hopefully Samuelson will be completely healthy, I'm still not fully convinced on Connor Clifton. Labushkin was pretty rough for Buffalo last year, and Eric Johnson has been declining. I'm going to give their defense a C+, some great standouts, but also a couple of big weaknesses in my opinion. And then you, of course, got the goaltending, which Levi will have to carry if the Buffalo Sabres are going to be a playoff team. You got Eric Commerce as backup, potentially UPL in that mix as well. I give the goaltending a C+, because I just feel like with Levi, they needed somebody that had some maturity, that had a lot of experience in a backup role behind him at the very least. They haven't acquired that, and to me, I could see that biting them in the butt, especially in this playoff race that is so tight in the Atlantic. When we look at that Atlantic division, to me it's a hot take, but I don't see any of Buffalo, Detroit, or Ottawa making the playoffs. They'll get a lot closer, all three of those guys, than they were last year, but I don't know if they'll have enough to truly get there. I still see Tampa making the playoffs, just squeaking in. I still see Boston being a great regular season team, same as Toronto, and Florida still being solid in the end, even if they do lose Ekblad and Montour at the start of the season. Florida might be the team that has maybe the best chance of missing, and that might be who Buffalo is trying to go up against the most after they were just 1 point shy of them last year. But to me, most likely inconsistent goaltending, especially outside of Levi, and a defense that I still think has some issues, kind of hold it back a little bit for me. I project them to get 86 to 92 points on the season, being between 5th or 7th in the division. Still being solid, but in that Atlantic, maybe not having enough to get there. I feel like their offseason was fine, but maybe not what they needed. And I know that is a hot take, so I want to know in the comments down below, what do you guys agree and disagree with my predictions? Do you see the Sabres being a playoff team this next year? Do you see them taking that next step? Let us know down below. Of course, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get notified on every single team preview as we get out there. 32 days. 32 team previews. Next up will be the Calgary Flames, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, folks. Goodbye.